Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we are exploring a blog post titled Unwind with Me, Evening Routine for Black Women. And what really intrigued me about this one was it goes beyond, just getting ready for bed. It's about really intentionally creating a space to de-stress and recharge,
Yeah.
you know, especially considering the pressures that a lot of Black women face.
Yeah. The blog really emphasizes the importance of self-care as a way to manage, stress, and it acknowledges some of the specific challenges that Black women may encounter.
Exactly. So let's kind of break this routine down step by step and see what we can learn. The first part is all about transitioning into relaxation mode as soon as you get home. What stood out to you about this?
It's interesting how the author emphasizes setting the mood right away. She talks about dimming the lights, putting on some calming music, maybe some soft jazz or R&B, and enjoying a warm bath or shower. It might seem simple, but there's a real science behind it.
Oh, all ears. Tell me more.
Well, think about it. Dimming the lights actually signals to your brain that it's time to wind down. It starts producing melatonin, which is the hormone that helps you sleep. And incorporating those sensory elements, like scents and sounds, can really enhance that relaxation experience.
It's like intentionally shifting gears from, the busy world outside to kind of a calmer space inside.
Exactly. The blog even suggests using scents like cocoa butter or eucalyptus, which can have,
Yeah.
aromatherapeutic benefits.
So it's not just about being clean. It's about creating this whole sensory experience.
Precisely. And that leads us to the next step, which is all about skincare and self-care. Here, the author reframes skincare as an act of self-love, not just a beauty routine.
Yeah, that resonated with me too. She talks about how cleansing your face can feel like washing away the stress of the day. It's almost symbolic.
Yes. And then there's toning, which provides a refreshing feeling. And finally, there's moisturizing, which she describes as like a mini spa treatment. It's about slowing down and really savoring each step.
I've never thought of it that way, but it makes so much sense. Instead of rushing through it, we can actually turn it into a mindful ritual. What's next in this relaxation journey?
The blog then talks about creating a calming atmosphere in your physical space. This involves spending just 5 minutes decluttering, whether it's tidying up your desk or fluffing pillows. It also suggests soft lighting, like candles or string lights, and playing calming sounds, like mellow R&B or nature sounds.
That's so relatable. Sometimes I feel like my environment reflects my mental state. When things are cluttered around me, my mind feels cluttered too.
Exactly. There's a strong connection between our surroundings and our mental well-being. Having a tidy and serene environment can significantly impact how relaxed we feel.
So it's not just about aesthetics. It's about setting the stage for inner peace. Now, this next step is one I know many of us can get behind. Preparing a soothing beverage.
Yes. The ritual of a calming drink. This part stood out to me because it's something that so many cultures incorporate into their evenings. The blog even mentions using a special mug that adds a personal touch.
It's funny you mentioned that. The author specifically talks about her blissfully Black women's just chilling mug and enjoying drinks like herbal tea, hot cocoa, or golden milk.
But what's really fascinating here is that it's not just about the drink itself, it's about that whole process of preparing it, that act of slowing down, feeling the warmth of the mug, and taking that first sip. It can really be a mindful experience.
It's like pressing pause on the day and giving yourself permission to just be present.
Exactly. It's a small but powerful act of self-care.
And it leads us to the next step, which is journaling or reflection. Have you found this to be a helpful practice in your own life?
Absolutely. Journaling has been shown to have so many benefits for mental well-being. Studies have found that it can reduce anxiety and improve emotional regulation.
It's interesting how simply putting pen to paper can have such a profound impact.
It really can. The blog suggests a few prompts to focus on. First, listing 3 things you're grateful for, which can shift your focus to the positive. Then, checking in with your emotions. How are you truly feeling? And finally, setting intentions for the next day.
So it's about processing the day, acknowledging your feelings, and then looking ahead with purpose.
Precisely. It's about creating closure for the day and starting fresh the next morning. Now, the next step is something that can be a bit challenging in our digital world, but it's so important for creating a peaceful evening, unplugging and relaxing.
Yes, the author really emphasizes the importance of disconnecting at least 30 minutes before bed. No social media scrolling, no checking emails, just giving your mind a break from all the digital stimulation. What are your thoughts on this?
In today's world, we're constantly bombarded with information and notifications. It's like our brains never get a chance to truly rest. This can have a significant impact on our sleep quality and overall well-being.
That's so true. Sometimes I feel like my mind is racing even when I'm trying to relax.
And that's where the digital detox comes in. By disconnecting from technology, we allow our minds to unwind and prepare for restful sleep. It also creates space for activities that promote genuine relaxation, like reading, meditating, or taking a bath.
What stands out to you the most from what we've discussed so far?
For me, it's the emphasis on intentionality. Every step in this routine is about making conscious choices that support relaxation and self-care. It's not just about going through the motions, it's about actively creating a space for peace and rejuvenation.
I absolutely agree. It's about taking ownership of your evening and crafting it in a way that serves you.
Yeah.
And it brings us to the final step of this routine, which is preparing for bed. Now, while the blog doesn't go into specific details here, it feels like it's more about carrying that intention of self-care into those final moments before sleep.
Right. It's like the author saying, I've given you the framework, now fill it in with what works for you.
Exactly. So before we delve further into the preparing for bed step and wrap up our deep dive into this evening routine, I want to leave you with a question to ponder. What's one thing from this routine that resonates most with you, and how could you incorporate it into your own evening? Take a moment to really think about it. What small change could you make tonight to create a more peaceful end to your day?
I hope you had a chance to reflect on what resonated with you from those initial steps. It's amazing how such small shifts can make a big difference in how we experience our evenings.
Absolutely. And you're right, the blog doesn't delve into specifics for the preparing for bed step. It's more about encouraging us to find what works best for us individually.
Exactly. But before we move on to personalizing our routines, I think it's important to acknowledge something the blog does explicitly address. This routine is intentionally designed for Black women.
Yes. And I think it's important to understand why that distinction matters.
The blog acknowledges that Black women often face unique pressures and stressors in today's society. Things like navigating societal expectations, dealing with microaggressions. These are experiences that can take a toll on mental and emotional well-being.
So this routine isn't just about relaxation. It's also about providing tools for resilience.
Exactly. It's about carving out a space for peace and rejuvenation in a world that can sometimes feel overwhelming.
It's almost like a form of self-preservation.
I see it that way too. And what I find really powerful is how the routine itself is structured. It's like a journey from the external to the internal. We start by creating a calming atmosphere in our physical space, and then we move inward, cultivating inner peace through journaling and reflection.
I like how you describe it as a journey. It's not just a checklist of things to do. It's a progression that helps us shift gears and transition from the busyness of the day to a state of calm.
Precisely. And each step builds upon the previous one, creating this beautiful flow. We start with setting the mood, then we nurture our bodies through skincare. Yeah. We create a sanctuary in our space, and we end with those moments of quiet reflection.
Now, while this routine is specifically tailored to the needs of Black women, I think there's some universal takeaways here that can benefit anyone, regardless of their background. What do you think?
Absolutely. The core principles here, intentionality, mindfulness, self-care, these are things we can all embrace.
It's about recognizing that self-care isn't selfish. It's essential. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as lighting a candle, taking a few deep breaths, or listening to a favorite song.
The key is to find what works for you and to make it a regular practice.
Consistency is key. Even a few minutes each day dedicated to self-care can make a world of difference.
And remember, there's no one-size-fits-all approach. What works for one person may not work for another. It's all about experimenting and finding what truly nourishes you.
I love that. It's about giving ourselves permission to explore and discover what feels good. This blog post serves as a great inspiration and starting point. But ultimately, it's up to each of us to create a routine that fits our individual needs and preferences.
And I think that's a perfect segue into a final thought I'd like to leave our listener with. We've talked a lot about creating an external environment that supports relaxation. But what about our internal environment?
That's an interesting point. I'm curious to hear more.
What about the thoughts, beliefs, or patterns that might be getting in the way of our ability to fully unwind? Sometimes the biggest obstacles to relaxation aren't external, they're internal.
So true. We can have the most serene surroundings. But if our minds are racing with worries or negative thoughts, it's hard to truly relax.
Exactly. So as we conclude this deep dive, I'd like to encourage you to take some time to reflect on those internal factors. What are the thoughts, beliefs, or patterns that might be holding you back from experiencing true peace and relaxation?
That's a really valuable question to consider. I know for me, it's often that inner critic that starts to chatter away as soon as I try to slow down. It's
Yeah.
like we need to declutter our minds just as we declutter our physical spaces.
That's a great way to put it. Just as we tidy up our surroundings to create a sense of calm, we can also clear out mental clutter. You know, those negative thoughts, worries, or limiting beliefs that weigh us down.
It can feel a little daunting though, right? Where do we even begin?
Well, it's not about aiming for a perfectly empty mind. That's unrealistic. It's more about becoming aware of those thoughts that aren't serving us and gently letting them go.
So maybe it's about replacing negative self-talk with positive affirmations, or practicing gratitude to focus on the good. Or maybe it's about creating boundaries with technology and information to make space for quiet reflection.
Exactly. It's about finding practices that resonate with you and help cultivate a sense of inner peace. Things like meditation, journaling, spending time in nature, or even just taking a few moments to breathe deeply and connect with your body can make a world of difference.
And I imagine this internal work is an ongoing process. It's not a one-time fix, right?
You got it. Think of it like tending a garden. We need to nurture our inner world consistently, just as we do our physical well-being.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into this evening routine for Black women, I think the biggest takeaway is that self-care is a powerful act of self-love.
It's about honoring your needs, prioritizing your well-being, and creating space for peace and rejuvenation in your life.
And it's a journey, not a destination. So be patient with yourself. Experiment with different practices and discover what truly helps you unwind and recharge.
We've explored some amazing tips and insights today, but ultimately the most effective routine is the one you create for yourself.
We'd love to hear what resonated with you from this deep dive. Share your thoughts or even your own evening rituals. You might just inspire someone else to create their own sanctuary of peace. Until next time, take care. And it really does make you think about, like, you know, all those things that we carry around with us that can sometimes get in the way of really, truly relaxing.
It is. It's like, oh, we can have all the bubble baths and the candles and the herbal tea in the world, but if we're still holding on to stress and anxiety, it's going to be hard to fully let go.
Right. And I think for a lot of people, myself included, it's that inner critic, the one that tells us we're not good enough or that we should be doing more.
Oh, absolutely. That inner critic can be so loud sometimes.
It's like it's always lurking in the background, just waiting for a moment to pounce.
Yeah. And I think, especially for Black women, there can be this added pressure to be strong, to be resilient, to always have it together.
Right. And while those qualities are definitely admirable, it's important to acknowledge that it's okay to not be okay sometimes.
Exactly. We're all human, and we all deserve to give ourselves permission to rest, to recharge, to just be.
So what are some things we can do to kind of quiet that inner critic and create more space for peace and relaxation in our lives?
Well, one thing that's been really helpful for me is mindfulness. Just taking a few moments each day to really tune into my breath and notice what's happening in my body and mind.
Yeah, that makes sense. When we're more aware of our thoughts and feelings, we can start to challenge the ones that aren't serving us.
Exactly. And there are so many different ways to practice mindfulness. Meditation is one popular option, but it can also be as simple as taking a walk in nature, listening to some calming music,
Yeah.
or just spending a few minutes focusing on your breath.
It's about finding what works for you and incorporating it into your daily routine.
Absolutely. And another thing I'd recommend is gratitude, taking some time each day to really appreciate the good things in your life, no matter how small they may seem.
I love that. It's so easy to get caught up in the negative, but when we focus on what we're grateful for, it can really shift our perspective.
It's like a muscle that we need to strengthen. The more we practice gratitude, the easier it becomes to see the good even amidst challenges.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's important to remember that self-care is not a luxury. It's a necessity.
It's an investment in our well-being, and it's something that we all deserve.
Whether you're a Black woman or not, the principles we discussed today can benefit anyone who's looking to create a more peaceful and fulfilling life.
So I encourage you to take what resonates with you from this conversation and start incorporating it into your own evening routine.
And remember, even small changes can make a big difference. So be patient with yourself and keep experimenting until you find what works best for you.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Until next time, take care.